Another Sunday, another case of the Scaries to start your work week. Welcome to the newest edition of the Sunday Scaries, where we have all your gore, lore, and more, covering all the latest horror happenings, slicing open all the latest horror news, and dissecting it bit by bit, finding all those juicy innards. Pour that cup of coffee and turn on your fright lights while we take you on a tour of terror. And Dylan, we are full force here. A fun week in the horror realm, I suppose. We're always staying busy.
Oh, always, always, always. I'd say a pretty slow week for us, though.
Yeah.
We've been considering coming off of the kind of packed 2 weeks we had with the Scream stuff and 65 and all these collaborations, and then we had our extra review with the lake and everything. So, and then this week, we had some Texas Chainsaw Massacre news, which was fun to
Hot
talk about.
tickets.
It seems like a lot of people liked chiming in on that one. I was happy to see lots of comments on that video. So if you haven't checked it out, please do. Love to hear your opinions on that. Yeah, but other than that, really just prepping stuff for the next couple weeks. We got a lot of cool stuff on the horizon that we can't really discuss in detail, but we are excited to get it out there for you guys.
Yeah, we're always staying busy behind the scenes, even when we're not posting content directly on the channel just yet. But I think we're
Always.
gearing up for a busier week coming up in
Mm,
theory. So we got a lot to do still. But yeah, the Texas Chainsaw. I mean, I think the legacy horror stuff tends to do very well. It's always a talking point, especially after Halloween and now Scream.
mm.
Maybe Texas Chainsaw is the next thing that's going to be hitting theaters at some point. I don't know, or Netflix. Who knows what the deal is?
I don't know what they do with that. I don't know if it'd go back to Netflix because it's a different company now. So, not
It's
to
going to go
dive
to
into that
Hulu.
whole thing, but maybe, yeah. But I
Disney's
mean,
going
it
to buy it.
seems like if you go to Hulu, you have a pretty good odds of it being actually pretty solid. So with Prey and Hellraiser, so
That
yeah.
is true. They have a good track record. I don't know. We'll see what happens with Leatherface in the fam.
Hmm.
Since they've been not doing so hot lately. In well, past what 10 years?
But anyway, it looks like we got to hop right into our news here. So, couple of interesting stories. I'd say a lighter news week. So, kicking things off, we are going to discuss some sad news. I think I have a little more insight than you do on this topic here, Luke. But yeah, this kind of sucks. So, Funko Guts Mondo ends poster division less than a year after purchasing the company. Now, what does this all mean in the grand scheme of things? I'm going to make this a little bigger so I can get rid of our little guy there. Um, well, it really just sucks ass if you're a horror collector and you really, really like the work that Mondo puts out, because these guys have always put out really solid posters and really solid, just like horror related products in general. As you can see, the design there for the Alien poster, which is pretty sick. And the fact that they have laid off that entire division is pretty terrible. I would say so for people who are interested, because I've gotten some Mondo things in the past. They are also known for their little tiki mugs and things like that they do. But yeah, this is just really I'd say disheartening. Yeah. So, and the thing that really sucks is that they purchased Mondo from Alamo Drafthouse, which we all know them for their theaters and everything that they do. So it's like they were in the hands of a really great company with a great reputation. Then they were purchased just to be discarded. But I think that this is a bigger sign here too, because if you keep up with the Funko stuff, we covered a little bit about Funko with Cocaine Bear Pops a couple weeks ago, and on our live stream for Leprechaun, we discussed Funkos and things like that for a brief minute. But yeah, they're on a downtrend. If you go anywhere where Funkos are sold, they're all heavily discounted, and that's because they did announce a few weeks ago that they were dumping like millions of Funkos. They're literally throwing them in the garbage because they have no value and they've just been taking up warehouse space and nobody is buying them. And I suspect it's for a lot of the niche brands. I think like a lot of the horror stuff did well and a lot of like the real like hard to find stuff. But I really think that Funko at the end of the day just got too big for its britches, and it sucks that Mondo has to suffer for that.
Yeah. I mean, like for me, I don't think I own anything Mondo related. Funko wise, I mean, I haven't bought a Funko in a minute. As we talked about the Cocaine Bear stuff. Where it's just I don't know. I think Funko has become oversaturated in a sense where it's like I know the Sam figure or Funkos were like so sought after when that initial one came out, and then you get re-release after re-release, and then new versions and everything. It's not really a collector's market anymore, and I think probably the company has suffered from that. Just releasing so many different versions of different Funkos makes them almost hesitant. And then with the Mondo stuff, I don't know how expensive it was. Was that a little pricier stuff?
It was a little higher end, but it wasn't too bad. It wasn't
Yeah.
like you'd probably spend maybe like $30 on like a good poster.
Okay.
And I think they'd also offer framed versions and things like that. So a lot of them were exclusives. I know that Mondo is also doing the steel books.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
I don't know how if that's the same division or not, but I know that they were responsible for doing a lot of big partnerships. Like if you were to buy like a certain item that they were putting out, the posters and stuff would usually accompany it. So
Okay. And it's like horror stuff. I think the horror market has become so competitive. Uh, whether it's official, unofficial releases, things like that, where there's so many iterations, different brands, that I think maybe some companies could end up falling by the wayside. Just I know there is a market out there for horror fans, but when there's so many different outlets for so many different merchandising deals, that it's like I think some of these companies could end up suffering, especially when they're kind of so like if you're specializing in a steelbook or a poster or tiki cups, where it's like there's only so much of a market for that type of thing before it just seems, non-conducive to the financial situation. So, it sucks that this happens. I could actually see this happening even more so down the line because I feel like as horror fans, we've almost found our groove and our footing into what we're going to buy and what we're not going to buy. Will we buy a NECA figure? Absolutely. Tiki Cup? Maybe not.
yeah, it turns into that niche thing. I think the thing that they need to do too is honestly, and I think Funko needs to, is they need to lay back on how many re-releases they do and how many you know just products they put out in general.
Yeah.
You need to make it more of a limited thing, which I know a lot of people are going to say, "Oh, that sucks. It means I have to grab it when it comes out right away." It's like, well, I mean, that's how you kind of keep it
Yeah.
alive, because once you get too big, you see what happens here. And unfortunately, I think a side of this that really didn't need to suffer, because I think that there's a lot of talented artists who put a lot of great work out, ended up suffering in the long run for it. So, because obviously they're not going to cut back on all the League of Legends pops and other bullshit that people don't buy. Because believe me, I worked in a record store that sold them. We had certain pops from certain brands like niche video games and stuff, maybe stuff that people love, but you guys weren't buying that stuff like that. I had pops that sat there from the day I got hired to the day that I left, and I was there for like 4 years. So,
It's cool to look at, not necessarily cool enough to buy.
absolutely. But let's move on to our next story here. We got some fun stuff with the new Adam McKay film, which I'm a big Adam McKay fan. Are you an Adam McKay fan there, Luke?
Yeah, he's got some good stuff that I like.
Absolutely. But this one seems real interesting. So we've got average height, average build, Adam McKay directing a serial killer comedy starring Robert Pattinson, as well as, and I got to mention the other cast members here: Amy Adams, Robert Downey Jr., Forrest Whitaker, and Daniel Del- Danielle Deadweller. Weiler. I'm not 100% sure how to say that. So there you go. But no, this seems really, really cool. Basically, from the gist of it that I get is that Robert Pattinson plays obviously a serial killer who is running I think he's running in some sort of political race to make what he's doing more acceptable. So it seems like it's going to be a satire. It seems like it's going to be really out there, but hell, I think it could be a lot of fun. And with that cast, man, I mean, just those three: Robert Downey Jr., Robert Pattinson, and Amy Adams alone. I mean, that's a hell of a cast. And then you throw Forrest Whitaker in there. Like, this is not only going to be, I think, a big one for horror fans, hopefully, as far as horror comedy goes, but I think it's going to be a real big one for Oscar season when that finally comes around.
And, Adam McKay is always known for having those kind of expansive casts like that. So it's very intriguing to see where this is going to lead. It's funny that we're, looking at this and, Adam McKay's directing comedy horror film. This is where we're at nowadays. So I think this one's really going to be interesting. And, we've talked about it several times on the podcast where I have a volatile relationship in between when you're mixing horror and comedy. But when, they announced this type of thing, I think this is going to lean far enough into comedy with slighter horror tones where it's going to feel like a perfect marriage here. So I'm really intrigued to see how they're going to pull this off. Robert Pattinson, I mean, come on, the guy can do no wrong here in the past few years. So I'm really intrigued to see how he's going to pull that off as well. He has that kind of dry delivery, which I think is going to be extremely fun here. And then you get those kind of uh, comedic kind of undertones in terms of horror with like things like American Psycho or Ryan Reynolds and Voices. I think was also interesting. So it's like
Yeah.
I think you can really find something a lot of fun here. Plus, with this cast, like you said, I'm really intrigued to see all the performances that are going to be going on through here because I think we're going to get some really intriguing stuff. And again, Adam McKay horror comedy. Let's see what happens.
Oh, absolutely. And I think you're right. Robert Pattinson can definitely have a little bit more of that dry kind of humor to him. I think one of the performances that a lot of people would throw that to would be his performance as Edward in the Twilight Saga. But what I'm going to throw it to is his performance in The Devil All the Time. I forget if you watched that one or not.
I've only seen
Uh,
about half of it.
yeah. So like, but his character, he's like a preacher, and yeah, he's very
I did, yeah, I saw his performance in that.
very odd, I would
Yeah,
say, in that film, very awkward. And I wonder if we're going to kind of channel that same energy. But you bring up things like American Psycho, which could be a perfect comparison for this. Because, say what you will, American Psycho does have a lot of dark humor in it.
yeah.
And if that's kind of what we're going for, which knowing Adam McKay, yeah,
Hmm.
we're going to look into something like that. I mean, we talk about like Don't Look Up, which was very satirical, very dark from a couple years ago. And then my personal favorite film of his is The Big Short,
Yes,
which is, I know not a typical horror film, but I would say a horror film
social horror.
nonetheless. Yeah, seriously, social horror because God, the housing crisis, what a mess that was. Not a horror film at all, but definitely scary to know that we lived through that, and that's just what happened. Like it's fucking wild. But yeah, no, I am definitely excited for this. I'm always a big proponent of Adam McKay. I know he can be pretty divisive amongst people, but I'm always ready to go when he has something come out.
Yeah, I'm excited to see him play in the horror space, at least whether it's going to be heavier or light here. I'm intrigued to see how he's going to carry that with the cast like this. But again, I'm intrigued to see what Robert Downey Jr. does in this. Robert Pattinson, obviously Amy Adams. I think this could be really intriguing stuff.
Absolutely. But alrighty, now we got to move on to the next story, which is a story that I had to, guys. You know me, I had to. Couldn't contain myself. The Black Demon trailer, Josh Lucas stars in a big screen megalodon horror film coming next month. Which, yeah, I mean, I knew about this. I knew this was coming. I think they reported about this couple months back, I want to say. And it was either a runner up or one of the stories that could be talked about for Sunday Scaries at one point. But yeah, no, this is definitely something that was on my radar. And yeah, honestly, do I think this looks good? No, I think this looks pretty silly. But am I going to be there opening day for it? Absolutely, 100%. If I can drag Luke, I'll drag him. Because, yeah, this looks like they're kind of capitalizing on the success of Meg from a couple years ago. And obviously, we discussed a little bit earlier today in an unrelated note that's Meg 2 is still slated to come out this August, but I'm a little worried considering we haven't seen any marketing material for that yet. I think it might be a little early, but it is starting to be about that time where I think they'd want to start rolling out some trailers for it. But we shall see. I know that window is getting smaller and smaller as we continue on with the way movies are. But yeah, I was interested in this. Luke, did you watch the trailer?
I did watch a trailer, yes.
Okay, how you feeling about the Black Demon?
This one you talked about us maybe discussing a couple months ago. For some reason, I don't recollect anything like this. This one kind of snuck up on me, to be honest. I did not remember it at all until this the trailer hit, and I was like, oh, okay. So this is something Dylan's clearly going to want to talk about. Um, you know, like you said, does it look silly? Sure. I'm not sure how I feel about it. The story doesn't necessarily jump out too much at me. But it could be something that could be a little bit of fun. The new bar is Beast.
Hmm.
That's what I'm looking for now. Is like something that's going to pleasantly surprise me. Do I think the Black Demon's going to be that film? Unfortunately, no. I'm probably still going to be waiting throughout the year to see something like Beast, because that one was such a fun film. So this one, it looks like it could have some silly moments in it. Obviously, we're pulling up on one right now, but I don't know. We'll see what holds. Jury is out if I will be at the theater with you to see this one. I'll see if I can be swayed, maybe. But I don't know yet.
Yeah, no, I think that this looks like a good bit of fun. I mean, this will be just after Evil Dead Rise. So this will be the following weekend. So I am interested. I'm intrigued. Of course, it's a big shark, so why wouldn't I be? But I do like Josh Lucas. I think that he's got some very interesting roles throughout his career. As far as the concept goes, it's kind of like, all right, yeah, sure. Big megalodon attacking an oil rig. I just wasn't too impressed with everything going on. It did look kind of, honestly, like they were really struggling to build tension and stuff here. But I will say it is from the director of Rambo: Last Blood, which I know is a film that we differ on very much. So I being that I enjoyed it, you did not. And he also did get The Gringo with Mel Gibson. So it's kind of intriguing to me that director is doing something like this, which is a creature feature. So I don't know. I will be there. Definitely, you will see a review from at least me on the channel for this. But I I gotta say I'm not 110% sold. I gotta say.
We're
So.
getting there. You'll be sold by the time you go to the
Oh, I'll
theater
be
to see it.
excited for sure. I'll be like, all right, Shark Time, baby, let's do it. But to me, it's just like I think megalodons are fun. I like the Meg. I like what they did with that. Was it amazing? No. Was it? Did it satisfy every itch I wanted? No. I want my sharks to be violent and gory. But it's one of those things where, for me, when you get to those really giant sharks, I don't know. I think that they become so unrealistic to me that it does turn into one of those things where it's like I'm basically just watching a dinosaur movie, which I love me a good dinosaur flick, but again, it's not the kind of stuff I like. I like a more realistic thing. Like Jaws is about as big as you can get
Yeah.
for me, where it's like, I can take a good chunk out of you, but I think that's where the fear really sets in for me. Megalodons, not so much. I'd shit my pants if one actually was at me, but we've yet to see that happen in our lifetime. So,
Time
and
will tell.
hopefully we don't. But all right, moving on to our last story. Nothing from the bloody disgusting on this one. This is actually just a talking point I wanted to bring up with Luke because yeah, we had a big movie hit theaters this past weekend, and unfortunately, it did not do so well. And neither of us saw it. I mean, we contributed to that a little bit, but it's one of those things where we're both busy. I think it came out at a really bad time considering all the competition that's out there. But without bearing the lead too hard, we're talking about David F. Sandberg and just Shazam 2, which I know you guys are like, well, why the hell are you talking about a superhero movie on a horror podcast? Well, that's because this man is very well known for his horror pictures. He started off on YouTube right here with us, making horror shorts. And then obviously one of those horror shorts became Lights Out, which was very successful. He went on to literally give the Annabelle films their best movie with Annabelle Creation, which I still think is a very solid horror picture. And then he got cast into the DC world with Shazam, and I like Shazam. Did you ever end up seeing Shazam?
Yeah. Didn't I see Shazam before you?
I think you did,
Yeah.
because I remember I waited until I got it on digital and then I waited a little bit to watch it.
Yeah.
But yeah, did you like Shazam?
Yeah, I like Shazam. Shazam's one of my probably my favorite, well, one of my favorite DCs, even though I don't really like superheroes anymore. But um yeah, this one I'm intrigued by, to be honest. I like Lights Out. I'm a big fan of Annabelle Creation as well. So, I didn't mind David F. Sandberg, in the superhero space when he did the first Shazam, but then when they were doubling down and having him do a second one, I was like, oh, did we lose him to the superhero side of things? So to say that, kind of having him back, maybe very shortly is a very intriguing, perspective. I guess I hope we do get him back here.
Yeah, because that's kind of the point that I wanted to kind of circle this back around to, is that David F. Sandberg has been very active the last few days. I mean, we go through his entire Twitter here. He has been sharing so much with the production of this film. And, a lot of it positive, but unfortunately, as things tend to do, a lot of it is fighting and fielding uh, superhero fandom, which, we're horror fans. Obviously, we're all in this little community together, and we have our fair share of toxic people with their toxic opinions coming in and, saying what they say and really sucking the fun out of it for everybody. But damn, like, if you're a Star Wars fan or a superhero fan, like, that shit's rough. And as both, I can tell you that it makes it really hard to enjoy talking about that stuff unless I'm talking to my dad or some of my really close friends, because it sucks all the fun out of it, man. Like, they ruin everything. And unfortunately, that's kind of what has destroyed David F. Sandberg's intrigue with doing any more superhero projects. He does not want to do it. He came out and said, I do not want to do another superhero film. And the way he said it was that he doesn't want to do one for now. But I think it's safe to say, and they talked about this on the John Campea show earlier this week, I don't think he'd ever come back after his experience here with Shazam, because so many people came out and bashed him. And people who admittedly said they aren't even going to go support the film or see the film, simply because DC's rebooting. We already know this. James Gunn's taken over. He's doing his own thing, which I think is a good move. But it just sucks that all got announced, and now this film has kind of just been left to the wayside. And people are just actively bashing him and saying, "Oh, well, your movie doesn't count, so who gives a shit?" That sucks. That is rough to see for somebody that I do respect greatly as a filmmaker. And yeah, I think that he's been very honest and active in saying that he's done because of the fandom, because it's so hard to keep up with people and so hard to satisfy people. And I hate that. So on one hand, does it suck that he has to go through that? Yes. On the other hand, like you, Luke, I'm very happy to see him coming back to the horror side of things, because that's what he said too, is that he wants to do a low budget horror film next. That's
Yeah.
what he wants to focus on. And I think he's going to swing for the fences and absolutely knock it out of the park.
And then just looking at like the superhero movies in general, I think the directors and the creators have a certain amount of creativity, but you're kept on a short leash with that type of thing. And as we're looking at a lot of the horror space, especially in the past year, of all the unique things that have been coming out, and especially with the success of, we talk about a lot, Barbarian and things like that, where it's like, okay, we can take a chance on some of the stuff and let those creative voices speak. And I think that's really what attracts a lot of people to the horror space. And I think that's what, David F. Sandberg saying he wants to come back and do a low budget horror just proves that he wants that creativity and kind of create something from nothing. It's like where we talk about Lights Out, and that film I was very surprised by. I didn't really necessarily have any high hopes for it. I wasn't aware of the short film when I initially went in and seen Lights Out in the theater, and I was pleasantly surprised by that film. And then, going back and seeing that short film and realizing, he had this idea ages ago and expanded upon it for an hour and a half or whatever that runtime is just, it's one of those very beautiful things that you see in the horror space where these creatives, have an outlet that can do a short, and then that gets expanded upon into an actual full-length film, and then now we're witnessing the birth of a whole film career. So I think this is really interesting. Annabelle creation, I mean, we just talked about it. That is, uh, other than, I think, The Conjuring and that film are really the only two that I recognize in that entire universe as being enjoyable in any sense. Um, so I'm really excited. I'm curious to see, writing and directing something very low budget, and see what he has up his sleeve. Because when you're working in that superhero space, you don't really get that voice. You might even lose it, a lot of the time. So I'm curious to see what he's going to come out swinging.
Absolutely. And so to cover here, his tweet that I was talking about, and just to get it a little bit more quoted and a little bit more understanding of his thought process here before we finish up, is on Rotten Tomatoes, I got my lowest critic score and my highest audience score on the same film. I wasn't expecting a repeat of the first film critically, but I'm still a little surprised because I think it's a good film. Oh well. As I've been saying for a while now, I'm very eager to get back to horror, as well as trying some new things. After 6 years of Shazam, I'm definitely done with the superheroes for now. Just to be clear, I don't regret even for a second making the Shazam movies. I've learned so much and gotten to work with some truly amazing people. Will forever be grateful that I got to direct two of these. They've been very challenging but valuable experiences. One thing I've been looking forward to is disconnecting from the superhero discourse online. A lot of that stresses me out so much that it will be nice to not have to think about it anymore. So there's the words straight from the man himself, and I hate it. It's upsetting because again, I'm a big superhero guy. I know, Luke, you're not so much into the superhero stuff anymore. You kind of disconnected a while ago with that for the most part. You have your every once in a while, but it's tough to get you to go to the theater to see a superhero flick. And I know you're not much of a Star Wars guy either, but it doesn't have to be this way. It's like people just need to show some respect and stop being such ninnies online about all this stuff. And, stop putting people like David F. Sandberg, who are, for very much lack of a better term, he never got Hollywoodized. He still acts like the little guy, just like us. Like he actively posts to his YouTube channel. He's always talking to people through social media and posting his filmmaking experiences because just like us, he's excited. He's interested and ready to, share this experience that he's making films in the Hollywood system. And to have that outlet for us as aspiring filmmakers, it's so valuable. Like it is truly so valuable. And the fact that, there are people who will be shitheads and just drive someone like this up a wall, I hate it. Just upsets me. I'm happy to have him back. I'm really excited to see what he does next.
Yeah, I think that's, well, what I'm more so taking away from this is, if you are, is there's too much controversy in the superhero side of things, the horror community is going to welcome you back with open arms, and see what you come up with. Because it's like looking at, the Ari Asters, Robert Eggers, it really proves that you can kind of mix those horror tones in with these films and really make something different and unique. So I'm really intrigued to see what he comes up with after this little bit of a longer layover than we're used to. Because Lights Out, Annabelle Creation was a great start in the horror space, and he's been missed.
Oh, he's gonna crush it, and hopefully we get to talk to him about it when it comes out. So, alrighty, guys, that's gonna wrap us up for the news this week. Thank you for joining us on the Sunday Scaries. As always, like I said, a lighter news week, a little bit more of a serious conversation towards the end there. So, sorry it couldn't be all fun in the sun, but hey, Funko, they're doing some fucked up shit. I'm looking forward to Adam McKay's movie, The Black Demon. Jury's out on whether that's gonna hit or miss, but hey, I'll be there to see it for you. And of course, whatever David F. Sandberg has coming up next, you can count us in for sure.
Absolutely.
But alrighty, guess that about wraps us up here. We got a lot of great stuff on the channel. Again, check out our Leatherface video where we discuss the rumored potential that Sony might be taking a stab at Leatherface now that they've acquired the rights along with Legendary. And yeah, we've got a lot of great content out there for you still. We still have our collaboration with Alex from Beyond the Void, which was a lot of fun. I really want people to check that out. With Carnosaur 2 and the debut first episode of Splattercast Cinema, which is something we're very eager to do more videos in. We're definitely planning behind the scenes, as well as keep an eye on the channel. We got a lot of stuff coming up this week. We got Malum coming out. So, we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about some stuff around that. So keep your eyes peeled. And yeah, I guess that about wraps us up. So until next time, I am Dylan Newell.
And I'm Luke Janesco.
And remember, stay scared.